The conference room felt colder than usual that morning. Maybe it was the October rain drumming against the windows of Vertex Digital's San Francisco headquarters. Or maybe it was the ice in CEO Richard Bennett's eyes as he delivered the news I'd been expecting for months. "Madison, you've done amazing work as CTO," he said, his rehearsed speech barely masking his impatience. "But technology moves fast. We need fresh perspectives." I kept my face carefully neutral, watching the board members avoid my gaze. 8 years I'd spent building Vertex's cloud platform from a basic hosting service into a $2 billion enterprise solution. 8 years of missed holidays, endless debugging sessions, and 3 a.m. crisis calls. "Fresh perspectives," I repeated softly. "Like your son's." Richard straightened, his expensive suit crinkling slightly. "Brandon has an MBA from Stanford. He understands modern business dynamics. What Brandon didn't have was a single day of coding experience or any real-world tech leadership. But he did have something I never would: the right last name." "The transition will be immediate," Richard continued. "Brandon's already prepared a new technical roadmap. More aggressive growth, faster deployment cycles." I thought about the platform's architecture, the complex systems I carefully built and refined over years. The redundancies, the fail-safes, the careful balance between innovation and stability. All the things Brandon couldn't possibly understand from his MBA case studies. "Of course," I said calmly. "I assume you'd like me to brief Brandon on the current system architecture." Richard waved dismissively. "He's got his own vision. Clean slate approach. Though we would appreciate you signing this." He slid a document across the table. "Standard non-compete, enhanced confidentiality provisions. Generous severance, of course." I picked up the agreement, scanning its terms while thinking about the other document, the one hidden in my private safe at home. Patent application number 2021-857, filed 18 months ago under my own name, not the company's. "What about the clients?" I asked. "Some of them are quite particular about technical oversight." "Brandon's already scheduled meetings with all major accounts," Richard said proudly. "Fresh energy, new relationships. They'll understand." I thought about James Martinez at Goldman Tech, who'd once spent 3 hours discussing quantum computing theories with me over coffee. About Sarah Chin from Microsoft Azure, who regularly texted me about system optimization ideas at midnight. About all the relationships built not on titles or degrees, but on shared understanding of technology's complexities. "When do you need the agreement signed?" "Today, ideally. Brandon starts Monday." I nodded, tucking the document into my bag without signing it. "I'll review it with my lawyer." "Madison," Richard's voice hardened slightly. "This is a generous offer. It would be unwise to make things difficult." I stood smoothing my skirt. "I never make things difficult, Richard. I just make them work." Outside the conference room, my team was trying to look busy while obviously waiting for news. Brilliant engineers and developers I personally recruited, trained, and mentored. "All hands meeting in 10 minutes, I announced. Important updates." While they filed into the large meeting room, I ducked into my office, soon to be Brandon's office, and opened my laptop. A message was waiting from Diana Foster, my former colleague who'd left Vertex 2 years ago to start her own tech company. "Is it time?" I typed back a single word: "Yes." The response came instantly: "Everything's ready. Just say when." I closed my laptop and headed to the meeting room. My team deserved to hear it from me first. As of today, I began, looking at their familiar faces, I'm stepping down as CTO. Brandon Bennett will be taking over on Monday. The shock in the room was palpable. Emily, our lead backend developer, actually gasped. "Brandon Bennett?" Jake from security asked. "The CEO's son. The one who asked if we could just download more RAM." A few people snickered, then quickly sobered. "This is a board decision," I continued. "Brandon has his own vision for the platform's future. I trust you'll all give him the same dedication and professionalism you've shown me." "But the Watson migration," Emily protested. "The new security protocols, the quantum encryption project. He doesn't know anything about." I held up a hand. "Brandon has an MBA from Stanford. I'm sure he'll figure it out." The sarcasm wasn't lost on them. Neither was the slight smile playing at the corners of my mouth, the one that told them there was more to this story. After the meeting, Emily lingered behind. This isn't right, she said quietly. The platform is your life's work. Is it? I opened my phone, showing her a private GitHub repository. Her eyes widened as she scanned the code. Is that a completely new platform, built from the ground up? Better architecture, cleaner code, true quantum-resistant encryption. I closed the phone. But you didn't see that. She smiled slowly. No, I didn't. Just like I haven't seen the resumes I've been quietly sending out, or the calls I've been getting from a certain new tech startup. Good. I handed her a business card, Diana Foster's business card. You definitely shouldn't call that number next week. Word spread quickly through the tech community. By evening, my phone was buzzing constantly with messages from clients, colleagues, and competitors. I answered none of them. Instead, I spent the evening in my home office, reviewing the platform I'd been secretly building for the past 18 months. Not on Vertex's servers or with their resources, I was too careful for that. This was my own creation, developed in parallel while maintaining their system. Every time Richard had dismissed my suggestions for improvement, every time the board had cut my department's budget, I'd added those rejected features to my private project. Now it was ready. A cloud platform that made Vertex look like a student project. And thanks to my carefully worded employment contract, which I'd insisted on 8 years ago, I owned it completely. My phone buzzed again. A message from James at Goldman Tech. Heard the news. Brandon just tried to schedule a meeting. Told him I'm busy for the next month. Call me? I smiled but didn't respond. Not yet. Another buzz. Sarah from Microsoft. Please tell me you're not really retiring. The industry needs you. I opened my laptop instead, checking the status of certain key elements. Diana's company, Foster Technologies, had spent months preparing for this moment. Infrastructure was in place. Data centers were ready. A carefully selected team, many of them former Vertex employees who'd left over the past 2 years, was standing by. One final message came through from Richard himself. Madison, legal needs that agreement signed first thing tomorrow. I closed my phone without replying and walked to my window, looking out over the San Francisco skyline. Somewhere out there, Brandon Bennett was probably celebrating his new role, planning all the changes he'd make to my platform. Let him celebrate. In 2 weeks, when Vertex's system faced its quarterly peak load test, he'd learn the hard way that complex technology couldn't be managed through PowerPoint slides and MBA frameworks. And by then, I'd be ready with something better. My phone buzzed one last time. Diana again, teams in place. Infrastructure's ready. Clients are already asking questions. Just say the word. I thought about Richard's dismissive wave, about Brandon's smug smile, about all the times I'd been told to be patient, to wait my turn, to accept decisions made by people who couldn't code their way out of a text editor. 2 weeks, I typed back. When their system fails its load test, we launch. Sometimes the best revenge isn't fighting back. It's building something so much better that the competition becomes irrelevant. And I'd had 18 months to build something perfect. The first warning signs appeared exactly 13 days after Brandon took over. I was in Foster Technologies' new offices reviewing deployment schedules with Diana, when my phone lit up with a message from Emily. He's breaking everything, she wrote. Brandon just pushed a streamlined version of the load balancing system. Says the old architecture was unnecessarily complex. I showed the message to Diana, who winced. Doesn't he realize that tomorrow's load tests? Nope. I leaned back in my chair. He probably thinks it's just routine maintenance. Something to check off his MBA to-do list. Another message from Emily. He disabled 3 backup systems. Called them redundant and inefficient. I thought about the careful architecture I'd built over 8 years. The fail-safes and redundancies that had kept Vertex's platform running through earthquakes, power outages, and cyber attacks. All of it now in the hands of someone who thought cloud computing was about actual clouds. How many clients have signed preliminary agreements with us? I asked Diana. She pulled up a spreadsheet. 23 so far, including Goldman Tech and Microsoft Azure. All pending our platform launch, of course. They're just waiting for. Tomorrow, I finished. They're waiting for tomorrow. The quarterly load test wasn't just routine maintenance. It was when Vertex's system handled peak traffic from all clients simultaneously, processing billions of transactions to ensure stability. I designed the test myself, built the infrastructure to handle it, added layer upon layer of protection against failure. Protection Brandon had just removed. My phone buzzed again. James from Goldman Tech. Brandon just gave us a presentation about his vision. Tried to explain cloud architecture to our engineering team. It was something. I smiled but didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and checked our system one final time. The platform I built in secret was ready, running on Foster's infrastructure, tested and retested until it was perfect. Status report from all teams? I asked Diana. She pressed a button on her desk phone. All departments, go/no-go for tomorrow's launch. The responses came in quickly. Infrastructure team ready. Security protocols verified. Client migration tools standing by. Support team fully staffed. We had spent months preparing for this moment. Many of our employees were former Vertex team members who quietly joined us over the past year. They knew both systems intimately, and more importantly, they knew which one was better. At 5:47 p.m., another message from Emily. Brandon just left for the day. Said the load test is basically automatic, and he has dinner plans. I checked the time. The test would begin automatically at midnight, gradually ramping up system load until it peaked at 9 a.m. Brandon probably thought he could handle any issues from home. He was wrong. Diana and I stayed in the office, watching the hours tick by. At 11:30 p.m., our monitoring systems showed increased activity on Vertex's network as the pre-test diagnostics began. At 11:45 p.m., Emily reported the first warning signs. Temperature rising in primary data center. Brandon's streamlined cooling systems aren't keeping up. At 11:55 p.m., Jake from security messaged, multiple failsafe systems trying to reactivate. Brandon's override is blocking them. At exactly midnight, it began. The first wave of test transactions hit Vertex's servers. Under normal circumstances, the load would have been automatically distributed across multiple data centers, carefully balanced to prevent overload. But Brandon had simplified that system. Within minutes, warning alerts started flooding in. Server temperatures critical. Backup systems offline. Load balancers failing. He's not responding to emergency alerts, Emily reported. His phone's going straight to voicemail. I watched through our monitoring tools as Vertex's platform began to buckle, critical systems failing one by one, each failure cascading into others, the carefully orchestrated dance of data and processing collapsing into chaos. At 12:17 a.m., the first major client connections dropped. At 12:22 a.m., the primary data center went into emergency shutdown. At 12:25 a.m., Vertex's entire cloud platform crashed. My phone exploded with messages. James from Goldman Tech. Complete system failure. Need immediate alternative. Sarah from Microsoft. Platforms down. Tell me you have something ready. Various other clients, all asking the same thing. What's your backup plan? I turned to Diana and nodded once. She pressed a button on her phone. All teams, execute launch protocol alpha. Within minutes, our sales team began reaching out to affected clients. Not with pitches or promises, but with immediate solutions, emergency access credentials, migration protocols, direct connections to our fully tested, fully operational platform. First client connecting now, our systems team reported. Goldman Tech initiating emergency transfer. We watched as their data began flowing into our system, smooth and secure, everything working exactly as designed. By 1 a.m., 12 major clients had initiated transfers to our platform. By 2 a.m., that number had doubled. By 3 a.m., Vertex's biggest clients were running smoothly on our system while their own platform remained dark. Brandon finally surfaced at 4:13 a.m., his panic evident in a company-wide email. Experiencing temporary technical difficulties. Working to restore service. But it was too late. Their clients weren't interested in waiting for a rookie CEO's son to figure out what he'd broken. They needed stability, security, and expertise. They needed what I'd spent 18 months building. At 6 a.m., Richard Bennett himself called me. I let it go to voicemail. At 7 a.m., the board chair tried. Then the lead investor. Then their legal team. I sat in Foster's offices, watching the sunrise over San Francisco, as our client list grew by the minute. Emily had officially joined us at 5 a.m., bringing 4 key developers with her. More were following. Madison, Diana called from her desk. Vertex's stock is falling. They're down 30% in pre-market trading. I nodded, unsurprised. What's our status? 28 major clients fully migrated. 12 more in progress. System performing at optimal levels despite the load. She paused. They're finished, aren't they? Not yet, I said, opening my email. But soon. I had one message to send, a carefully worded announcement to the tech community. Foster Technologies announces immediate availability of next-generation cloud platform, featuring quantum-resistant encryption and true adaptive scaling. Platform designed by former Vertex Digital CTO Madison Chen and team. The response was immediate. Industry news sites picked up the story within minutes. Vertex's stock fell another 15%. At 8:47 a.m., Richard Bennett finally swallowed his pride and sent an email. Whatever you want. Name your price. Just help us fix this. I showed the email to Diana, who laughed. Are you going to respond? Not yet. I stood stretching after the long night. First, I think Brandon needs to learn a valuable lesson about respecting other people's work. Our platform hummed smoothly in the background, handling the load that had crashed Vertex's system. Every line of code, every system design, every architectural decision validated by real-world performance. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Emily. Brandon just threw his Stanford diploma at the wall. Literally shattered the frame. I smiled, thinking about all the times I'd been told to step aside for fresh perspectives and new energy, about all the complex systems I built that had been dismissed as unnecessarily complicated. Madison, Diana called out. Vertex's board is calling an emergency meeting. Apparently, Brandon's position is being reevaluated. I nodded, unsurprised. How's our system performing? Perfectly. Every metric exceeding expectations. The clients are amazed. Good. I sat down at my desk, my real desk in my real office at my real company. Then let's show them what actual innovation looks like. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just watching your competitors fail. It's showing them exactly what they lost when they push you away. 3 months after Vertex's catastrophic system failure, I stood on stage at the annual Tech Innovation Summit in San Francisco. The audience was packed with industry leaders, investors, and engineers, including, I noticed, several Vertex board members seated uncomfortably in the back row. Innovation isn't about buzzwords or degrees, I began, my voice carrying clearly through the hushed auditorium. It's about understanding complexity, about respecting the delicate balance between advancement and stability, about knowing that in technology there are no shortcuts. In the front row, Diana smiled. Foster Technologies had just crossed $1 billion in valuation, our client list reading like a who's who of global tech. Every major company that had witnessed Vertex's collapse firsthand had switched to our platform. Brandon, I'd heard, had stepped down to pursue other opportunities. His LinkedIn now listed him as a strategic consultant, though the industry grapevine suggested he wasn't getting many calls. When I left Vertex Digital, I continued, many assumed I was finished, that I'd fade away like so many other displaced technologists. What they didn't realize was that sometimes being underestimated is the greatest advantage you can have. The screens behind me lit up with real-time metrics from our platform. Processing speeds, security protocols, client satisfaction rates, all setting new industry standards. They thought complex systems could be simplified with PowerPoint slides and MBA frameworks. They thought 8 years of architectural knowledge could be replaced with fresh energy. They were wrong. In the 3 months since our launch, Foster Technologies had revolutionized cloud computing. Our quantum-resistant encryption had become the new standard. Our adaptive scaling technology had made traditional load balancing obsolete. We weren't just better than Vertex. We were better than anything else on the market. After my keynote, James from Goldman Tech caught up with me in the lobby. You know, he said, grinning, Brandon tried to pitch us last week. Some new venture he's starting. Something about disruptive paradigms and synergistic cloud solutions. I raised an eyebrow. How did that go? Let's just say our engineering team still quotes his RAM downloading suggestion in meetings. As we chatted, I noticed Richard Bennett himself hovering nearby, clearly working up the courage to approach. He looked older now, his confident swagger replaced by something more hesitant. Madison, he finally said, stepping forward. Do you have a moment? I excused myself from James and turned to face my former CEO. Of course, Richard. How's the recovery going? He flinched slightly. Vertex's stock had stabilized, but at 70% below its previous value. Their remaining clients were bound by contracts that would soon expire. That's actually what I wanted to discuss, he said quietly. The board, we've been talking. About the future. About leadership. I waited, already knowing what was coming. We'd like you to come back, he continued. Full control. CEO position. Whatever terms you want. 3 months ago, this offer might have been tempting. The chance to reclaim my old platform, to prove I should have been in charge all along. But now, I'm afraid that's not possible, Richard. I gestured around at the conference, at the Foster Technologies logos prominently displayed. I'm building something better. We could acquire Foster, he pressed. A merger. Keep the brand, the technology. Whatever you want. I smiled, thinking about the message it would send. About every talented engineer passed over for promotion because they didn't have the right pedigree or play the right politics. No, I said firmly. Some things need to fail, Richard, so others can learn from their mistakes. Later that evening, at Foster's headquarters, I held an all-hands meeting. Our team had grown to over 200 people, many of them former Vertex employees who joined us after the collapse. Today marks a milestone, I announced. We've just signed our 100th major client. Our platform is processing more transactions daily than Vertex handled in their best month. But more importantly, we've proven something crucial. Emily, now our Chief Architecture Officer, beamed from her seat in the front row. Jake had taken over global security operations. Every person who believed in me, who'd seen the potential I was building in secret, had been rewarded with positions that matched their talents, not their titles. We've proven that real innovation comes from understanding complexity, not oversimplifying it. That experience matters more than expectations. That's sometimes the best response to being underestimated, is to build something so superior that the competition becomes irrelevant. The applause was thunderous, but I wasn't finished, which is why I'm pleased to announce our new initiative, the Foster Innovation Fund. We're allocating $100 million to invest in overlooked technologists, people with brilliant ideas but without the right background or connections. People who understand that real progress comes from expertise, not entertainment. Diana joined me on stage, holding up the first batch of investment agreements. 20 brilliant engineers and developers, all rejected by traditional tech companies for being too technical, not polished enough, not fitting the expected mold. Because that's how we change this industry, I continued. Not by playing their game, but by creating a better one. My phone buzzed, a news alert. Vertex had just announced another round of layoffs. Their platform, hastily patched back together after Brandon's departure, was losing clients weekly. The board was considering selling what was left of the company, but I barely glanced at it. I was too busy looking at the faces in our office, at the real innovation happening on our screens, at the future we were building. That evening, as I worked late in my office, Emily stopped by. Just got another call from Vertex's HR, she said, settling into a chair. They're really desperate to rebuild their technical team. I looked up from my screens. What did you tell them? That I'm exactly where I need to be, she paused. You know, when Brandon first took over, I was angry. Couldn't understand how they could be so blind. But now I realize they did us all a favor. Forced us to build something better. Something real. I nodded, thinking about the long nights coding in secret, the careful planning, the quiet confidence of knowing I was building something revolutionary. Madison, Emily continued, there's a rumor that Microsoft is considering standardizing their entire cloud infrastructure on our platform. Is it true? I smiled, remembering Sarah's call earlier that day. Let's just say next quarter's numbers will be interesting. After Emily left, I walked to the window of our offices, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Brandon was probably working on his next PowerPoint presentation. Richard was likely meeting with crisis managers. The Vertex board was presumably strategizing about survival. But here, in our building, real innovation was happening. Real technology was being built. Real progress was being made. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Diana. You should see the latest applicants for the Innovation Fund. These kids make us look old. I smiled, thinking about the future we were shaping. Not just a better platform, but a better industry, one where talent mattered more than titles, where complexity was respected, where real innovation could flourish. Send me their files, I typed back. Time to build something even better. Because that's the thing about technology and about revenge. The best kind doesn't just prove them wrong. It makes their mistakes irrelevant. And we were just getting started.